Inside the Birds is back. And we're back in Fishtown. It's Adam Caplan, Geoff Mosher, and of course our special guest. You see him on our pregame show, Jason Avant. Welcome back to the show, Jason.
I'm happy to be here. Great to see you again, buddy.
Great to see you too.
Yeah,
this is ITB history right here for a couple of reasons. This is the first time that we are live streaming our podcast, and we are here thanks to the Fishtown BID, our friends Mark Colazzo, Kay Anderson. We're here at the Mural City Gardens, right? Which is a beautiful park here in Fishtown, right on 2211 Kensington Ave. Frankfurt Ave. 2211 Frankfurt Ave, and you got to see it. We've got people here. They've got drinks at the Mural City Cellars trolley. We talked about the trolley on the last podcast. It's a beautiful old SEPTA trolley here that is now turned into a wine and beer center. It's really
cool.
awesome.
I got to tell you.
Awesome. So big thanks to the Fishtown BID for bringing us here. All the people who are here to see the show. Those listening and viewing won't be able to see. They'll be watching us.
Yeah.
But know that it's a great crowd here, and we're having beautiful weather, thankfully.
Great.
And we always look forward to being back in Fishtown, where we have a lot of Birds fans, and of course we got a lot of Eagles stuff to talk about today. This wound up being a perfect day to do a live stream podcast because obviously the Eagles make a big move. They trade Jalen Reagor. They make moves on their practice squad. They start practicing for the season opener September 11th against the Lions. So we're going to get to all of that. So Adam, we were talking about the moves the Eagles have made.
Yes.
To the point where Jalen Reagor's spot on the depth chart kept dropping. And first last year it was Devontae Smith. Now it's A.J. Brown, Quez Watkins, Zach Pascal. You can't be a first-round pick and a fifth wide receiver only returning punts. I mean, even Jason would tell you that.
Yeah, and quite frankly, Britton Covey, who's going to wind up taking that role anyway.
Yeah.
He's on the practice squad, and he'll wind up doing it. They'll probably call him up for that Detroit game. But, yeah, look, here's the thing. They drafted him for a specific role 2 years ago. That's where you have to really start with Jalen Reagor. I was there the day he hurt his shoulder. He actually trying to help out on an interception return, and he jammed his shoulder. He also, I think, over the middle.
Broke his finger on catching a pass over the
correct.
middle. Yeah.
And then, he had to rehab those injuries. He got back. He had a good game against Green Bay. In fact, he had a return for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. You saw him catch a touchdown from, I think, Hurts in that Green Bay game, right?
Yeah.
So you saw some promise. So they felt, though it wasn't quite what they had hoped that first year, they saw some promise.
Right.
And then I think you had reported that he showed up to training camp out of shape.
Last year, yeah.
Yes, last year, out of shape. He failed a condition test.
Mm-hmm.
No one could quite understand what was going on with him. Now, we know he had a friend of his passed away, and he was down the dumps over it. Okay. But that's no excuse not to be in shape. Jason could have tested as a former NFL
life
player.
happens.
Life happens, right.
But the fact of the matter is, he did next to nothing last year. And as we've learned in this business, time moves on. They don't wait. And typically when you see something you're not happy with, you have to make a decision. Well, they made the decision when they were trying to make a trade for Calvin Ridley. Mm-hmm. Atlanta did the honorable thing and told them they knew about what was going on with Ridley in the gambling, so they backed off that. And then the Eagles turned to plan B. They looked at other receivers, but they looked at the big fish, A.J. Brown. They monitored that situation. And then, as you outline, they signed Pascal. They've got A.J. Brown, and all of a sudden, he goes from being their second or third receiver to their fifth because Quez Watkins, the head coach loves.
Right.
So, as we've been saying for months now, there's simply no reason for this guy to be here. You're not going to cut him. We were told flat out, no matter what's out there, they're not cutting him.
Right.
And they were going to be open to listening. And then what they were doing is they have these trade calls. This has been going on. I think in our information, they've had on and off talks easily for 6 weeks. There were so many teams asked about Reagor.
At least a half dozen.
Yeah.
At least.
But they can never get the great offer. They really wanted was a third-round pick.
Correct.
That wouldn't happen. Why? He had no production last year.
Right.
So to move this forward here, they came to a resolution. I think both sides, it was best that they moved on from Reagor, give him a fresh start, get as much as you can. And it was between, I think, Denver.
Denver was in it at the end.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know some people say, why would the Vikings do it? And we'll get to that in a second. And then this is where you pick it up. Now, what other teams did you hear about?
Now, again, so just so that we're clear with everything, there were a lot of calls made.
Right.
You don't know if there's an offer made.
Right.
Sometimes there's discussions that do involve draft compensation or player,
Yes.
but it's not an official offer, it's just a discussion. So I can tell you, you said Denver was definitely at the end there having discussions. I heard the Dallas Cowboys, who have issues at wide receiver right now, had discussions. The Bears. At one point, the Texans and the Packers. The Texans, I think, only have 4 wide receivers on their entire 53 at the deadline yesterday, which I found fascinating for a team that's so young and rebuilding. But those were among teams. And then, if you remember, even after the draft, I think Baltimore was one of the first teams to call Howie Roseman.
It was just in the draft. All it was is just a simple
conversations.
Yeah,
right.
And that was it. But
Minnesota, to my knowledge, was the one that really emerged with an offer and wanted to get the deal done.
Jimmy, who's our producer here, he said, diehard Viking fan. Why are you shaking your head, man? Reagor's talented.
You're like, why are you shaking your head?
No, he is a talented kid. He needed to change his scenery.
So let's talk about that, because I want to ask Jason, with his experience, A, I want you to talk on the idea of a change of scenery and what that will really mean for Jalen. And B, I want you to really you were an assistant wide receivers coach for the Eagles 2 years ago. So when this kid, Jalen, was a rookie, you were helping out. You were an assistant wide receivers coach. You got to coach him, and I remember you felt that he's got a dog in him, right? You did feel that about. You liked Jalen Reagor. Was his Eagles career a failure of the player, a failure of the coaching staff? How do you look at that, and how will the scenery work for him?
It's always going to tend to be the player, number one, and then well, I won't say the player number one. I would say it's field management one, because that has nothing to do with the coaches, because the coaches didn't have the right to make that decision, you know, but that's going to be upper management. They failed with the pick, and I'm glad that they rectified it so quickly. We've seen these picks linger on for years. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside lingering on for a few more years after they realized it was a mistake, you know, so another year or so. So I'm glad they were able to get it rectified and move him on quickly. But I would say organization first, because to my knowledge, there was a lot of teams that were like flabbergasted that they took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, for the most part,
for the most part,
teams had him as a late one, early two.
Late one, too. Yeah. So I would say from an organization standpoint, and also knowing what you need, but then the player has to be accountable in this. I thought that Jalen Reagor needed to be tougher. Tougher mentally when it comes to dealing with fans in the city of Philadelphia, but that's just a microcosm of what the real issue is. If he has problems responding to fans or getting offended when fans say certain things, do you not think that that's going to apply to coaching?
Oh, that's
you know, that's gonna apply to coaching, like because not being able to take criticism, constructive criticism the right way. And if you're not that person, this league will not coddle you. This is not high school and college where you're the best athlete and people give you preferential treatment. You get preferential treatment in the NFL once you prove yourself.
Right.
And he never did that.
Let me ask you a question. You were with BG when he was drafted, correct?
Yeah, we were here together.
So he got off the rough start, blocking fans on Twitter. There were people internally who were wondering if he'd ever make it because he wasn't doing well. I think he got hurt.
Yeah.
And he seemed to be angry, mad at everybody. Do you know what turned his career around? Any idea?
BG's always been a fighter.
Okay.
And injuries and not being able to play up to par, it's a totally different thing than someone that has the tape that Jalen Reagor has and failed in some situations that a first-round pick would normally thrive in, and have the opportunities one-on-one down the field that a first-round pick normally like desires to have. That's different between being a guy that's just struggling with injuries and not being able to get on the field. And I think that was the thing with BG.
Gotcha.
Well, if you want to know what kind of bizarre world the NFL really is, the Eagles were killed for taking J.J. Arcega-Whiteside ahead of DK Metcalf, and then they were killed again for taking Jalen Reagor ahead of Justin Jefferson. And now these two guys are both teammates, right? Arcega-Whiteside and Metcalf are teammates now on the Seahawks, and of course, Jefferson and Reagor are now teammates on the Minnesota Vikings.
I thought he got cut.
He did.
He's on the practice squad for the Seahawks.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, though, a little bit of information that I picked up at about an hour before the show started. Jalen Reagor and Justin Jefferson are friendly. They know each other. They've trained out. They work in the offseason. They've actually talked a lot together about the comparison issue that always arose when Justin Jefferson was out breaking records, and obviously Jalen was not having success here. So for those wondering, is he walking into a very awkward situation where he has to go and look at Justin Jefferson in the face every day after 2 years of people telling him he's not Justin Jefferson? The fact that they're friendly and they've talked about it, and Justin has actually said, hey, listen, we're in different situations as far as I understand. I got a different offense here, you got a different offense there, forget about it, everything's fine. So I think that will help Jalen kind of go somewhere. And I want to ask you, just being around Jefferson, Adam Thielen in this new offense that's going to be a McVay-style offense, right now he looks like the fourth receiver and punt returner. We'll see. They may try to get him in the slot a little bit. Do you see a pathway for him to fulfill some of that promise there?
It helps him. I don't necessarily know if there's a pathway to fulfill the expectations of a first-round pick at receiver, but it helps him because you're talking about two of the best route technicians in the game that he gets to learn from each and every day. Those guys beat you with technique and not necessarily skill. Not skill, but not necessarily talent. So they beat you with technique and skill, not talent. So that's only beneficial to Jalen Reagor. Do I think that
to be
Kirk
fair,
Cousins,
technique and skill are talent, right? Because you had some of the best technique there was.
Yeah, it started to produce, talent. My talent was catching the ball and beating people up. And beating people up. That was my talent.
All right, I'll stop interrupting you now.
But no, once you get in front of those guys or get next to those guys, hopefully he's humble enough and that Philadelphia has broken him enough that he can receive information.
Right.
Because in yesteryear, he wasn't that receptive to new ideas. And hopefully the city of Philadelphia has brought him to the place where he can receive information again.
Well, I want to pick up on that. What do you mean by was not receptive to new information?
When you're a first-round pick and you've had success and everything that you've done has flourished and you get to a position in NFL where you fall and it's a catastrophic fall, it makes you humble again. And I think that because of so much success early, it was harder for him to realize that it wasn't going to be like, college and high school. And so when I got a chance to be around him, I thought that he wasn't as receptive to information.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, listen, what Adam and I can definitely report is that, while you've been all away on vacations and everything, this offseason, Jalen, the coaches felt, had a much better offseason as far as when he was returning punts. He didn't put anything on the ground,
we were
and
told,
he came very, very focused and put any distractions aside. That's what we were told,
Didn't have a drop punt in the OTAs.
Right.
Came with a new attitude. I think he got humbled. It's kind of like, what else can you do to me?
Yeah.
Because when you're so far down the depth chart, all you can do is just show up. There's no expectation.
Yeah.
Now, here's another nugget for you. Sirianni, actually, we had heard, really wanted him to stay. Why? Who else do they have on the roster at the back of it that knows the offense? Let's say that a couple of the top guys got hurt. He would have been with the offense for 2 years in a row. He has positional versatility. Also, he could return punts. It's not his call, obviously. It's the general manager's call, and they have to do what's best for the club. But there was this misconception that Sirianni wanted to matter. That's not the case. We could shoot that down. That was actually out there, so we could shoot that down. In fact, we were told it's the exact opposite, which we were kind of surprised about, only because look at the depth chart. I mean, the depth chart's telling you kind of what the kid was.
Oh, sure. If I was a coach and I didn't have to worry about cap, though, and you're telling me I at least have a former first-round pick being able to be my fifth receiver,
even
I don't have to worry about
like that guy.
Yeah.
There's talent there, Jason. That's another question.
There's talent. There is talent.
What kind of talent does this kid have?
He's a gadget guy. I wish they were trying to use him as, but I think that his talent is going to be with an offensive coordinator that will get him in open spaces some way. He's not a guy that's going to win off the line of scrimmage, and that's where he failed, is his line of scrimmage. He loses, and then there's always a contested catch down the field. If you lose at the line of scrimmage and you don't have impeccable size or something that's going to make you fierce to the ball like Steve Smith, when you can lose it and you're such a competitor that you can get to the ball, it's going to be tough for you. So he lost at the line of scrimmage and he lost at the top a lot. Those two things you can't do. So he needs to be schemed open. Now, he has the ability once you get the ball in his hand, but you got to scheme him open in order to do that. Now, get an offense where you got Adam Thielen, you got Justin Jefferson, got Treadwell, got some other guys there.
Osborne.
Osborne, you got some guys there. Maybe they can carve out a role for him in special situations.
Plus, as you just mentioned, Kevin O'Connell, new head coach, comes from that Sean McVay movement. A lot of things going on offense. So maybe that will be a remedy for Jalen.
They've had some guys that have had some success in Sean McVay's offense, right?
Yeah.
So they've had some guys that have been down the line.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, we are having a great time here, Mural City Gardens, and our Vikings fan, Jimmy, producer Jimmy, is shaking his head. Nah, you're good. You're good. We're having a great time here at the Mural City Gardens. People are filing in. I see Eagles hats, Eagles shirts. People have beer. People have wine. Again, shout out to Mural City Cellars providing the drinks here, doing a great job. Also, as we always talk about our friends, Freestone Farms CBD. It's the very best CBD, all organic inputs. So make sure you check them out. FreestoneFarmsCBD.com. You can get 20% off if you use ITB at checkout. That's FreestoneFarmsCBD.com. 20% off using the promo code ITB. So let's talk about this now. Eagles offense that, is going to look a little bit similar, but you brought A.J. Brown in the offseason. I want to ask you this, Jay. From a
similar.
No, but even before we get to the offense.
Okay.
No, I want, because we just came off of, we were in Miami last week at joint practices. I don't think when you were a player you had any joint practices. They were kind of not doing that back then.
We had Chip. We had the Patriots.
Oh, Chip brought him back.
Oh, Chip, because Andy didn't hate him.
No.
The Eagles did 2 weeks back-to-back. In Cleveland, joint practices, then a game. In Miami, joint practices, then a game. Come home now, and they're preparing for a road season opener.
Yeah.
And just from what Adam and I observed in Miami, they looked like the legs were shot there. And that was one of Adam's concerns going into the preseason. How would the team hold up? Hot weather, 2 road weeks back-to-back of joint practices, very little time at home, and then you start the season on the road. And, I'm not making excuses. It's a preseason game, and nobody cares about 40-10, whatever it was. But there were some guys we thought who were fighting for jobs that just kind of looked like they weren't fighting for jobs. And I just wonder, as a player, that seems like a lot of travel in August, right before the season's about to start. Do you have any curiosity about the impact of that?
So let's get the joint practices question, or I think you were alluding to that.
Yeah, my point was they're very intense.
I think that the joint practices are so necessary now. You
Right,
got
'cause
three.
no
You got basically no preseason. You got three games, but then they're not practicing a bunch. They're practicing an hour and 20 minutes or so. So you need some competitive drills. You don't want to hit your guys all the time. So I think this is just an adaptation of what we have to do, right, in order to survive in the NFL. So I think that those are definitely necessary. Will it help them down the line? I'm sure it will. Will they be tired now? But they got an entire week. I don't think that they've had such a stressful camp. Not the practices I've been to.
No, certainly not the first 2 weeks.
Yeah,
right.
It wasn't stressful at all. So I think that they have to get their legs under them at some point. They have to simulate the season. And I think joint practice is the only way you can do it now. And this time. Not yesteryear when there was 4 and 5 preseason games, but.
No, I like the concept of them. I think they're very important for what you're saying with a limited preseason schedule and no 4th game.
Yeah.
But I just wondered about the idea of what kind of impact it was having on your legs to do it on the road back-to-back weeks, and then when you start the season on the road. 3 or 4 weeks, you're kind of traveling. So they always talk about the impact of travel on the schedule,
Yeah, I didn't see many starters out there, so I think we'll be fine.
They'll be fine, right? Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the offense here. Adam, the only surprise really at quarterback, it's not really that Reed Sinnett got waived or that Carson Strong got waived because they didn't have very good camps or preseasons. But Ian Book, what do you think about that as a rostered player?
He's an athlete. He can move around a little bit. Sinnett, by the way, is on the practice squad. He cleared.
Correct.
He's on the practice. So we'll go over the practice squad later. It's interesting. They almost got all the guys.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty good practice squad. But he's got some movement ability from Notre Dame. I think it was a 7th-round pick for
I thought it was a 6th or 7th.
Yeah. So now again, he's on the 53. He was claimed off waivers.
Right.
So he's not going to dress the first week. Most likely, he'll be the 3rd quarterback. On the 53, and now they have also a practice squad quarterback, which we'll get to later, which is Sinnett. So 4 quarterbacks you really need 4 in today's NFL. You certainly need 3. You have to have 3 one way or the other.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you don't need
Book's an okay player. I mean, he might actually have been a 5th, between the 5th and the 7th. I don't remember. This is 2 years ago out of Notre Dame. He was with the Saints.
Yeah.
My understanding on him, he's a decent athlete, okay player. He's definitely a third-string quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they liked him enough to claim him off waivers. And by the way, he takes a regular spot in the roster.
Right.
It was 1 for 1. Because the way it works is when you claim a player off waivers.
Yeah, but wasn't Davion Taylor the corresponding release?
Well, yeah, but here's the problem though. They traded Reagor.
Right.
Okay. They added Book, and what was the other move?
Well, they have an open spot as we're recording this on the team because they released Davion Taylor. They kind of announced.
They announced the
trade. They announced the Book acquisition and the Taylor trade.
What I was going to say is you have an hour.
Right.
If you don't have an open spot, you have an hour to cut a player on the post 53 claims.
Right.
That Rick Spielman, the former Vikings GM, said. So.
Okay.
Fact of the matter is that he's a developmental backup. And remember now, Minshew's contract's up after this season.
Yeah.
And Hurts next year is the final year of his rookie deal. So that's a practice squad guy. They really at least need to develop a backup for whoever the starting quarterback will be for next year.
Sure.
They don't know about Hurts yet.
This is like another dart throw. Like they keep doing this with quarterbacks, but you just said 4 quarterbacks on it. It's 3 on the 53, 1 on the practice squad.
Don't need it.
You go through an NFL practice, right? The starter gets like 90% of the reps. That's Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Minshew gets like the 10% that they want to, just to make sure he knows the offense. And then your third quarterback usually runs the scout team. So what does
if the
Reed
second
Sinnett
quarterback doesn't
do?
want it?
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Either Reed Sinnett or Ian Book, one of them has no kind of job at practice unless they split the scout team.
On the look team, I was going to say on the look team, he's a pretty good athlete. Maybe we can do the look stuff.
Yeah, so it depends on the quarterback.
Yeah.
You always want diversity on your look team. So you want guys that are extremely fast, one receiver really small, one receiver really big, one quarterback that can run, one guy that has a cannon. So it can add some value there, but I don't necessarily like the idea of 4 quarterbacks. I just don't think it's enough reps in the NFL practice.
That's what I was getting at.
Because you want your second string guy to take some scout team reps.
Right.
And you want your third guy to be the main guy. But the fourth guy is, I don't know, friendship, I guess, some encouragement.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to say, if anything, because Ian Book is sort of in that athletic mold, run around mold, and Reed Sinnett is not. So, like, if you're preparing week 1 for the Lions and Jared Goff,
that would be
you might have Sinnett running the look team. If you're preparing for Russell Wilson, then maybe you get Ian Book in there.
They must see some promise somewhere, and they just want to hold on to it for some reason.
Yeah.
Someone likes, Reese. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. Running backs and wide receivers. We'll kind of package the skill positions here. No surprise at running back, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell. Update on Sanders and the hamstring. He still remains out?
What I heard is he and Hargrave should work next week.
Okay.
And then, Kelsey started working today.
Yes.
So that's good. We had reported 3 weeks ago he'll be fine for the regular season. Well, I should say, wait a minute.
Right.
He'll play. I don't know how. I'm sure he's going to be sore after procedure, but no, he's going to play. No doubt about that. It's good that he started working this week. It's actually a little earlier than I expected. That's good.
Right.
Yeah, man, Sanders with that hamstring. Jason, as a former player, when guys have chronic issues with hamstring and groins, in this case hamstring, what could it be?
It's usually, a lot of times, like us in the media, like we just label him like injury prone, just that guy. Usually it's something that's deeper than that. It's usually like misalignment somewhere, hips are off all the time, lack of hydration, those types of things. It's usually it's going to stem down to one of those 2 things. It's usually some alignment issues and or just a lack of hydration. And that's what it usually comes down to.
I mean, he's worked so hard to develop his lower body. We saw that in training camp. He definitely looks more muscular, more fuller on the lower trunk area. And I would have to think by this stage of his career, he does the hydrate. Like, I'm sure the sports science team is all over him on that.
It took me to maybe year 4 to understand the value of hydration.
So like it's got to be like you think you're hydrated, but
no,
you're not.
It's a totally different thing. This is 5-6 Pedialytes a day. This is electrolyte Gatorade with electrolyte packets.
Right.
This is water bottle, like water gallons.
Sure.
It's hydration. It's like you're peeing 15, 20 times a day.
Let me ask you something. Something that I think I see younger players. I know Kadarius Toney's having a problem. Someone with the Giants explained to me understanding how to play through injury. How long did it take you to understand that, okay, yeah, I have an injury, but I need to push through it? Did you know that as a rookie?
I knew that in college because we had, it was a bunch of guys fighting for those positions. And I remember Braylon Edwards one day, decided that he was a big man on campus and said, I'm just going to sit out, a week with this injury that he didn't have to sit out for. And me and Steve Breston tore the camp up, that all the reports were Jason Avant, Steve Breston may be better than Braylon Edwards. And he came back like 3-4 days later, and he was like, dude, I'll never do that again ever. And it always just resonated and stuck in my mind because I didn't want to give Mario Manningham an opportunity. Forget that.
Former Eagle?
No, former Giant.
Yeah, but did they bring him in?
No, you're thinking of
Steven
Ruben.
Smith.
You're thinking of Ruben Randall.
Okay,
Or
Ruben
Steven
Randall.
Smith.
Ruben Randall, that was it.
Yeah,
Ruben
yeah.
Randall, yes.
Yeah. So I had that mentality.
So wait, real quick. Braylon Edwards pulled the Dennis Rodman on you guys.
Yeah, and-
I'm going to go out to Vegas, chill for a week.
Well, that was my boy, but he had that tendency. But after that day, after those practices Steve and I had, like we were catching 3-4 touchdowns apiece in those practices. And it's like, man, we may not even need this guy for this year.
And he's like, oh, I feel great
Yeah,
now.
I feel great.
Mentally, is there something that says, all right, I got to push through? Like, what would get you through a minor injury? You just know you could handle it?
It's a different time, Adam. Back in those times, the coaches had the right to challenge you mentally. And it wasn't bullying. It wasn't any of those things, right? It's a different time that we're in.
Oh, yeah.
So our coaches would have talks with us about mental toughness. They'll bring in a Navy SEAL guy and talk about, his training. And when you think that you're done, you have much more in the tank. And we were trained and built for that, like a military mentality and mindset. You can't do that now.
That's why I asked you. I was wondering about that.
we just, the coaches can't do that now. You can't
At the
barely
college level you're talking about.
Even in the pro level. Without one of these guys, crying or feeling isolated or disrespected or want to fight.
Phone call to the NFLPA.
Yeah, it's just a different time.
All right.
Okay.
So mental toughness is not something that guys have now.
So let's go back to the playmakers here. Miles Sanders, who, as Adam said, should be back in about a week. Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell, no surprises on the running backs. And then a wide receiver, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, Zach Pascal. And it sounds like with the spot open, perhaps Britton Covey will get elevated. Or they don't even have to, they could just elevate him
on Saturday.
On Saturday. They could still have 53 and elevate him.
Well, right now, by the way, they only have 4 receivers on the 53.
They have 4.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
They have to give
They
one.
can claim a guy, but still elevate.
You can't dress
Britton
4
Covey.
guys. You have to, and he would be the publisher. And then again,
It's been done, but very
you're risking it.
Yeah.
And it's funny you said, I've seen teams do this.
We've done it before.
Yeah, Greg Lewis.
It was Greg Lewis, Deshaun, Hank Basket.
When you know it's someone gets hurt and you're really screwed because you can't go, if you want to go 10 personnel, someone gets hurt, you can't do it.
Yeah.
It's like a team that dresses 2 tight ends. I know teams will do it. Well, how do you go 12? If one guy gets hurt, you can't go 12.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially if you don't use a fullback.
So with this offense in mind, year 2, we've seen a lot of RPOs this training camp, which is something they tried to do last year early, and then then it went away. Then it came back a little bit at the end of the year. What do you see of this offense, Jay?
This team will throw the football a bunch, and I hope the fans are getting ready for this. They're going to try to throw the football a bunch, and they're justified in it. They have to figure out what they have in Jalen Hurts, and they've put so many resources toward receivers and skill positions. They want to throw the football, and they can always depend on the run game like we did last year in order to make the playoff run, but they want to see what Jalen Hurts is and if this offense can be explosive. So that's something I'm looking forward to see a bunch early in these few games, how much we throw the ball, because I think it's going to be a ton.
That's a great question.
What
It's the question of the season.
Offensive concept do you see out of it? Do you see this being a West Coast offense? Do you see it being a modified West Coast with college concepts? Do you think it's going to be like what Andy Reid does, what Shanahan does, or something a little more scaled down like Frank Reich's pure West Coast?
I would be lying to you if I told you I knew exactly what it would be,
I think we all feel that way.
because I've seen the RPO, I've seen A.J. Brown in the backfield like Deebo Samuel. I've seen in the past us just turn into 1940s and start running the football every play, right? So I've seen this team adapt, and that's the thing that I love about Nick Sirianni is that we've seen him adjust this. So I don't necessarily know which version is going to stick, but I do know that we have the ability to play multiple styles as of now. If the passing offense is the way that he wants it, it's going to be more of a West Coast style with a little play action that can get us down the field.
Awesome. So I was on my tour, an ex-coach in the league who was at one of the practices, whether it's NovaCare or Cleveland or Miami, and he said, I've seen this offense now twice. It's a timing-based offense, no question about it.
West Coast.
There's a lot of elements of that. It's a two-read offense for the quarterback. It's RPO-based. If it's off the two reads, he's checking it down when he's running. They're not asking him to go farther than that. They kind of know who he is.
Right.
And though I would tell you, and I said to this coach, I said, you said two reads. You should have seen him 2 years ago. He's one read.
Right.
So he's obviously, they're giving him more.
Right.
I've actually seen him go through progression this
Yeah, a little
offseason.
bit.
Now,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
been in practice. Now, practice is always a little sketchy because you get a little bit more time sometimes.
He's not bailing as much.
You know, but he's not bailing as much. But I've seen him go back and get to the third receiver this offseason. I've seen it.
Yeah.
But I don't
Great.
necessarily know if it'll happen in the game. Hopefully it does.
All right. Well, we always say one read quarterback is, you know, two reads you're good, three or more you're getting to that. That's a really good level if you can consistently do that. I mean, you
Yeah.
talk about some of the best in the game. So even if he's at two with the ability to run after the two is not there, then you're getting a better version of what you got
Jason
last
just
year.
said it. Now, again, this is we call the offseason minor leagues.
Yeah.
This is the fastballs are coming here.
Yeah.
Let's see how Hurts develops. Does he bail? Because he was not bailing a lot in this offseason, which is a huge key for him. This has been his big issue.
Right.
As we move forward here, that's one of the things is the style of offense which you just set up. How much more will they throw? They were throwing the ball about 26.5 times per game after week 6. That's not, the owner done one day.
No.
I think that's what Jason was talking about.
Right.
Because, and plus, Goddard, who's going to have a breakout season, who a couple of people with Eagles said no one could cover him all training camp. In fact, the Browns told me the same thing. Like, they tried. So what do you think of Goddard, by the way?
Great. I thought that for the last few years that he was the better player. Now, for the last few years.
Over Ertz, you mean?
Over Ertz.
Okay.
I thought he was the better player.
What's held him back?
Just opportunity and Ertz.
Okay.
You know, opportunity and Ertz. And I don't necessarily think that because he's always been a superior blocker, right? Ertz is the better route runner, but Ertz, I love him, but he cheats. If the route's at 10, Ertz is going to go at 6 and get the ball, but it won't equal a first down. Like, he cheats and he gets open, and people say there's no such thing as getting open too quickly. There is. It cuts down the window of being able to advance the ball after the catch and the quarterback timing and things of that nature.
Right.
So, and that was a problem with some of the receivers and things of that nature. But yeah.
Interesting. All right. I mean,
Yeah.
if you,
But anyhow, when it comes to Dallas Goedert, his ability after the catch has always been better. Always been. And he doesn't go down as easy. And that's what you want from a tight end. You want your tight end to be able to not go down on the first tackle and be able to fight through those. We've seen it early in the preseason, him diving over a guy. This is what he does. It's always been that way.
What does a tight end like this, who could run like this, do for an offense?
Well, let's think about it. You got A.J. Brown. You got Devontae Smith. Now, you can't – just think about Travis Kelce with no Cheetah. Now you start to get into like one of your better pass defenders on him. You may see a corner on him, which we've seen in the past. You will never see a corner on Dallas Goedert. And that gives us an advantage because he can be safeties, he can be linebackers all day. So it's definitely an added benefit where you don't have to allocate one of your best people, on defense to him, which put a lesser guy on him. So it's beneficial for us. No one can cover.
All right, so we've got higher hopes for this year's offense. Certainly a more diverse array of playmakers now that you've added A.J. Brown, and now that Dallas Goedert gets to be the starting tight end from the beginning. Do we really need to spend too much time on the offensive line? I mean, there were no surprise cuts. There was a surprise addition in Josh Sills, right? And we talked about that
wow.
in the but he's the 10th offensive lineman. And
Still, though, that's
still not sure where that came from.
But I could tell you there are a lot of people surprised around the league, but you know what? In Jeff Stoutland, they trust. If you know this is a Stoutland call.
Right.
He obviously likes him very much.
All right, we're going to move on.
They like to have around 10. They
Yes.
they
have
only be at
10, right? And this
they
kid's
won
6'6".
10.
It's funny, Andy got to a point in the last few days of the Andy Reid era where he had so much versatility, which you still have now, that he'd be comfortable with 9. Sometime one year he kept 8, I believe. Maybe even Chip kept 8, and they would just use the versatility. But ever since Doug came back, and even with Nick Sirianni, they like to keep more offensive linemen. And I think it's benefited them.
Defensive linemen.
And defensive linemen too, and that's a great segue to defensive line. We'll talk about in a second. First, we're going to pause real quick to hear a word from our great sponsors, and that includes our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
It's a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, now as we always say, if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. Heck, tell them Jason Avant sent you. You will get a very, very good deal. Great deal. Yeah, see? It's all in the family.
Sky Motor Cars, yeah.
All right, Jason mentioned the defensive line. Again, not an area where you look and you see a whole lot of surprises. Marlon Tuipulotu, Adam, we've talked about this. This is a guy that they wanted last year to make an impact as a rookie. He had a tough start, tough go of it, and he came back in the second year a lot in shape. Now, this is a guy who doesn't look like it, but for what they do up front, he can play a little with that nose, like head up on the center. At least they believe he can. And he can also give you a little bit of pass rush as a 3 technique. But what they like is that he can stop the run mostly from a different array of line formations, and he can give you a little bit of juice in the pass rush if need be. But they're so deep in the pass rush, it's probably not a good thing if Marlon Tuipulotu is out there.
He may not even dress because he's the 50 tackle. And remember, Milton Williams has positional versatility to play end and tackle. No, they're loaded there. This is Tuipulotu, as you said, showed up in shape. He gave them that little bit of pass rush, which Greg Cosell told us about when he watched his tape at USC. He looked exactly like they thought they were getting. Last year he wasn't in good enough shape. He wasn't able to work out with it because we were told he had a severe hamstring issue. He's good to go there. So their D-line is fortified. They're good. We're told they're going to be a multiple front team. Even more so, we're told, than last year. Right. They're a little bit more static with that. They're 34 2 overhangs. They'll run from 43. They'll give different looks on the back end because you don't have Steven Nelson anymore and you got James Bradbury.
Right.
Let's be honest about it. That's a little bit of an upgrade.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Sorry, underestimating. It's a major upgrade.
Hey, man, that guy is starting for the Houston Texans, so it's kind of crazy. And he signed earlier.
Him. Yeah. We had Steve on last summer. He was great. He's hilarious.
Good dude. Jason, this year, what we've seen mostly in the preseason is a 3 defensive line and 1 overhang player look. What kind of benefits does that present this team? And with the linebackers that they added, Kazir White, Nakobe Dean, TJ Edwards improvement, you remember how bad they were against the run for the first 6 weeks? Are you expecting something completely different now with this personnel?
100%. This is a totally rebuilt defense. The only person that can hold this back is Jonathan Gannon. The players are solid. And when you have a guy like Jaquaski Tart that comes in and can't make the team because Epps is balling out,
right,
and you have the defensive front with Jordan Davis added, and Nakobe Dean may not even play.
How about that? Nakobe Dean, everybody thought instant starter.
May not even play because the depth. So I think that we're going to see one of the better defenses in the NFL, and this should be a very stout defense.
One of the better Wow.
One of the better defenses.
So you're buying Gannon's going to get himself together.
I'm buying it because of the players. Here's the thing. Good players can overcome coaching. Good players can overcome coaching.
Is that the old George Seifert won a Super Bowl with the 49ers thing?
Listen, it happens all the time. It happens all the time where there are certain guys that I call them playmakers. Those are the guys that get paid. They're playmakers. That's when the play is 50-50 or it's not there. This guy will make the play happen despite your bad decision as a coach. And there's players that can do that.
Did that maybe happen in some city in 2017? Putting you on the spot, Jay.
Hey, listen, I got
I'm just kidding. I'm curious to see how Doug does in Jacksonville. I know you were there, and you said that they're really fond of the control there. I mean, listen, the guy's following in Urban Meyer's footsteps. You can't not look good when you're following.
Doug is the exact opposite. It's just he's exactly what they need to calm the waters because I would say that building was kind of shell-shocked, is my understanding. So he's in a good way. He seems very, very happy.
Right.
But they haven't played a game yet, so we'll have to see what happens.
They have not. The linebackers. I think we are all surprised that I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, TJ Edwards has played. He's improved every year. But you know when you're a rookie free agent in this league, you're always looking to upgrade over you. And I got to give the guy a lot of credit. He's had a great camp. That's not just from our eyes. That's just from our intel as well. And, you know, they drafted Nakobe Dean, and I think everybody thought, well, TJ Edwards will only be a base linebacker when they got to stop the run. And if a game is being played today, Edwards and Kaiser White appear to be your starting linebackers.
He's the guy that you just can't get off the field.
Yeah, that's a good thing, right?
You can't get him off the field because measurables. Like, the only reason people don't think that TJ Edwards can play or he didn't get drafted is because of measurables, how fast he ran, how far he jumped.
Right.
Some guys are just football players. And when he's in the game, he has a nose for the football, and he's always around the ball. He's always made plays. Not just last year. When he's in the game, you notice that he's around the ball a lot. And it's sort of like Epps. When he's in the game, we talked about it last year.
Yep.
You notice that he's in there because he's around the ball. So a guy like him, you can't get off the field. You just can't.
No, he's and listen, the Eagles have tried.
Yeah, they're trying.
He sort of reminds me, Jay, of Greg Ward when Greg Ward first got called up. And it was like, Greg Ward's not going to be long for the Eagles, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden
5
he's out
years
on
later,
the field.
yeah.
All this time later, it took 5 different wide receivers for them to finally say Greg Ward can't make this 53.
Actually,
and he
he's
was
on
hurt.
IR.
He is on IR. He might come back still.
He's technically on the team, but yeah.
That is true.
All right, we were going to also talk about the secondary, cornerbacks and safeties a little bit more and get into the practice squad. However, we had some technical difficulties, but that's all right. Adam and I will cover some of the more recent practice squad additions and finish off our discussion on this Eagles team in the next podcast that'll drop Monday morning. So we want to thank everybody that was involved with the live stream, our producer Jimmy Hayden from Public Square Media. We want to thank the Fishtown BID for bringing us to the Mural City Gardens. Thank you to Mark Colazzo and Kay Anderson. And of course, thank you to Mural City Cellars for the beer and wine that they distributed to our fans and viewers who were there to take in the podcast live. And of course, thanks to our producer here on the podcast, Tyler Strasser. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.